Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina wa Nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Here we're going to cover Safar Islamic Studies textbook 7. And as part of what we're going to cover, we're going to look at unit number 1, which is essential knowledge and the basics of Islam. And there are a few pages to look at to cover this section. And I'm just going to give a quick overview of all of this so that the information is there. The main objective is to have students keep this information with them for life, inshallah. So these are essentials every single Muslim must keep with them throughout their life, because it creates the basis and the fundamentals of the whole religion. So we've got the basics of Islam, the 5 pillars here, Shahada, Salah, Zakah, Sawm, Hajj. Each one's explanation is there. And we've got the 6 articles of faith, which is belief in Allah, belief in the angels, the books, the messengers, the last day, and Qadr. Now, all of this will be covered again in this book under Hadith Jibreel, alayhi salatu wasalam. And so we'll go through that, but some of this is also going to be explained here. So some of the articles of faith will briefly be explained here from the essentials of what they need to know. Tawheed and Shirk are 2 parts that are essential to the deen, to the religion. So every Muslim must know that the oneness of Allah is central to this deen, and that shirk in any form whatsoever cannot be performed, and that is all explained there. On this side here, you've got explanation of the 4 main angels: Jibreel alayhi salam, who comes down with revelation; Mikael alayhi salam, who's in charge of affairs related to the rain and plants; and Malakul Maut, who is the main angel of death, though there are many other angels that assist Malakul Maut in his duties, and also Mikael alayhi salam; and Israfil, who has the duty to blow the trumpet or the horn before Judgment Day. Now, there are other angels that are explained here. For example, you've got the Kiram and Katibin, the angels who record all deeds, or Nakir Munkar, who are going to be present in the grave to ask the 3 questions. And you've got the angels on the 7th heaven of Baytul Ma'mur, where they are doing tawaf or going around the Kaaba of the angels on the 7th heaven. Now, there are many other angels that have been covered, but these are just a few examples. And the whole idea is that Muslims have this as an essential part of their faith, that all the time there are angels that are doing duties, and there's a record that's been kept for the Day of Judgment. And many other things and affairs that are happening around us, all are happening because of the will of Allah through the angels that He's sent to the earth, though Allah Azza wa Jal doesn't need those angels. Now, on this side, you've got the revelation that comes from Allah Azza wa Jal. So according to the beliefs that we had, we've done the angels over here, and the books, the belief in the books, we've got a whole section here. And as part of the beliefs of the books, we believe in many different prophets that came, which is explained over here. So from the time of Adhan to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there's been many different prophets. And there are main 4 messengers that received 4 major revelations, although there have been other smaller revelations given to certain prophets, like the Quran has told us about Suhuf Ibrahim or Musa, the scriptures that came to Ibrahim alayhi and Musa alayhi. But these are 4 major prophets: Musa alayhi, and Dawud alayhi salam, Isa alayhi salam, and Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that all received 4 major books. And apart from that, then we have the belief specifically about the Quran, that the Quran is a book that is preserved. It will never have any alterations to it whatsoever. But the other books have been sort of altered to whatever degree they've been altered. So the Quran is the final revelation. It's never been altered, and it's a guidance for all of us. And for Muslims, this book replaces all the books beforehand. So that's our major book. So it gives essential information that the Muslim knows that Allah Azza wa Jal has sent angels, and some of those angels have brought down revelation, and those revelations came in form of books to the messengers, and they've been sent as a guide. Now here is where we have some parts about the messengers that Allah Azza wa Jal sent. The difference between a Nabi and a Rasul is all explained here, where we see a Rasul is someone who has come down with a new Sharia or new guideline or new rulings for people to follow from, direct from Allah Azza wa Jal, and this replaces whatever people followed beforehand. And Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam being the central messenger for us as Muslims, where he is the individual who's received the final wahi and revelation from Allah Azza wa Jal, and there is no other prophet after him, and this is an essential part of every single Muslim's belief. Down here we've got the Day of Judgment, and the Day of Judgment, again, if you look on this side, one of the essential beliefs is the last day, and as part of that we've got the Day of Judgment and the hereafter. And there are some parts that every Muslim needs to know, which is about the signs. There are some signs before the Day of Judgment, but more so it's about the blowing of the horn, then it's resurrection, and then after that Allah will judge people, and then Allah will give them the book of deeds based on what they did in this world. Their actions will be weighed on scales, and then there's going to be a bridge in front which everyone has to try and cross and get over to get to Jannah, paradise, and save themselves from falling into hellfire. And this is a summary of the major beliefs of the Day of Judgment. All of this, all in all, that we've covered is to do with our aqidah, our beliefs, and thereafter we move on to some essential parts of fiqh and our understanding of what we have to do as rituals. So on this page, on page 12, you see that there's tahara, and for ghusl there are 3 essential parts. The rinsing of the mouth, rinsing of the nose, and pouring water over the entire body are all essentials of ghusl. Without ghusl, obviously there's going to be no ibadah that will be accepted, or no worship that will be accepted. And wudu, the 4 main elements again of wudu, with the face, the arms, it's all colored in sort of blue. So you've got the face, you've got part of the head, you've got the arms, and you've got the feet, that all have to be washed or wiped over in the case of the head. And then we've got tayammum here, and again there are 3 essentials in tayammum, that a person is able to make an intention. Over here you can see the intention towards the heart, and then pat a natural surface and wipe the entire face, okay, and then pat both hands on a natural surface, and then use your hands to wipe over both arms, okay. That is tayammum, and of course all of this has been covered in the primary series, but these are essentials to know the fara'id and the major parts of each of these actions. Here on page 13, we move on to the prayer times. Now, most Muslims again think that the prayer times are based on calendars, but those calendars are really based upon the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ to determine when a prayer time comes in and when a prayer time ends. So you've got the Fajr here, where it starts as Subh Sadiq, which is the true dawn. It's going to be light that goes across the horizon, and moving on to Dhuhr. Fajr will obviously end when sunrise comes into effect. Dhuhr is going to be when the sun just moves from its highest peak. It's going to slightly move down. That's when Dhuhr will begin, but it will end when the shadow of any object plus the part that remains at the time of Zawal is double the amount. So that's when Asr sort of kicks in at Mithlain, and that's what Mithlain is. Again, most of this has been explained in the primary series. And after that, Maghrib comes in when the sun actually sets. So the top part of the sun has gone below horizon. That's when Maghrib comes, and it will remain Maghrib all the way till the Isha comes in, which is that the twilight has disappeared. That is after the redness, there's a kind of a white part. Then you have a sort of dark night, and that's where Isha basically is, and that's when it comes in. So right at the bottom here, you've got the number of rakats, which ones is sunnah and fard and so on. Very basic, diagram here, which tells us which ones are mu'akkada and ghair mu'akkada. And it's important that they know which ones are the emphasized sunnahs to actually make sure that they do those sunnahs as well as the fara'id, the fard salah. So for them to actually be able to count off every single rak'ah of every single salah, for a Muslim to do that is essential. Now here on page 14, we've got a whole part here that tells us about the essentials of salah and the different elements of salah. So the fard here you can see are in red, the sunnah here are in green, so lightish green, and the wajib here they're in orange. So the idea is, I mean, normally in any book you'd have all this mixed up, but we put it into the order of salah so that it's easy for people who are reading this book to know from the beginning of salah all the way till the end of salah what part of that salah means what level. Okay, and what this does is that it makes it easy for a person to know that if they miss one of these things or delay one of these things in the actual salah, what they need to do. So would they need to do sajda sahwa or not? And that's why this whole element is really important, including all of these 7 other side, which are the elements outside of salah, and these are the parts inside of salah. All of these outside of salah, like for example, clean clothes, clean place, covering the awrah, facing the qibla, praying at the right time, making the right niyyah, all of these are fard, all of these are important, they must be done. And then within salah you've got the important ones that are put in red, that never must be missed, and then you've got the wajib ones that also can't be missed. If they're missed or delayed and so on, you have to do sajda sahu at the end of salah. And the sunnah ones, if they're missed or delayed, they don't necessarily require a person to do a sajda sahu. So that's a whole part here for revision and for them to keep in their mind, because every time they do salah or any Muslim is doing their salah for their life, they need to keep these things in their mind. Here we've got on page 15, we've got the essential of adhan and iqamah. Now the whole adhan is written over here with certain rules that have been placed here. For example, it's a sunnah to say adhan, iqamah before the 5 daily prayers and so on and so forth. These parts are here so that adhan is something that these are from the daruriyat din, which means they're from the essentials of the religion, and they must never be forgotten by a Muslim, because it's an essential part of their salah, adhan and iqamah. On page 16, we've got the janazah formation here, the whole way of doing the janazah salah from the beginning to the end. So 10 sort of steps of how to do the janazah salah. Again, another essential part of a Muslim's life. And at the bottom section of page 16, we've got the whole of the year, the lunar year's calendar. For a Muslim, it's important to know what month they're in and what occasions Islamically are about to come. So, starting from Muharram and the whole part of 10th of Muharram being Ashura. Muharram is the beginning of the new year. And then moving from Safar to Rabiul Awwal, where the Prophet ﷺ was born, and he also passed away in the same month. And then you have a few months here, Rabiul Thani, Jumad al-Ula, Jumad al-Akhirah, which don't have any significant Islamic dates in there, but Rajab has the part of Isra and Mi'raj on the 27th, regarded commonly 27th, though there are narrations to say that it could have been the 25th, the 26th, the 27th, the 28th, or the 29th of Rajab. So there's about 5 different dates about Rajab, but commonly regarded to be 27th because there are more narrations to do with that. Again, as a Muslim, it's important to know about these events, because every year there are things that will surround a Muslim's life to try and make themselves come closer to Allah Azza wa Jal. Not that we shouldn't be closer to Allah Azza wa Jal in other parts of the year, and I think that's very important to highlight at this point, that throughout the whole of the year, every single night is very significant, because Allah Azza wa Jal, according to the hadith, His presence is there in the lowest heaven, and He's calling to say, who will ask me for forgiveness, I will forgive them. Who's asking me right now, I will give to them. Who's making dua to me, I will answer their call. These things are said. So every single night is very important, but there's a special significance to certain nights. So over here in Sha'ban, you've got the 15th of Sha'ban being the Layla al-Bara'a, and it's a praiseworthy night according to certain ahadith. Again, the aspect here is for us to understand that there will be some Muslims who will accept this as a very significant night based on ahadith, and there will be others who won't. But it should not lead to people, falling out with each other because of this, because the basis is there. Some see it as, a weak sort of reference, and others see it as a collective amount of narrations that do give a good significance to that night. Okay, so here you've got Ramadan, and you've got the first day of Ramadan is going to, because fasting is the first day of Ramadan, but then after that you've got Laylatul Qadr, which is in the last 10 nights. And what's important here is to emphasize that it could be any one of the last 10 nights, because you've got narrations that spread from the beginning of 21st night, and 23rd, 25th, 27th, 29th, all the odd nights. And then you've got narrations that go towards the even nights as well. So the narrations should say the 22nd, 24th, 26th, 28th, and 30th nights. So that's there, and it needs to be said that though sometimes it is regarded to be the 27th night of Ramadan, it doesn't necessarily have to be the 27th night of Ramadan that Laylatul Qadr falls on that night. And for further information, one can just look at Surah Qadr and get a lot of information from there regarding that. But nonetheless, the whole point of this exercise is for everyone to know that this is the 9th month of the Islamic year, and that night falls within that period. Shawwal is the beginning of Eid. That's where Eid comes, and it's nice for a Muslim to know that Eid, one of the Eids falls in Shawwal, and the other Eid is going to be in Dhul Hijjah. But Dhul Hijjah's significance is not only the Eid, but it's also the days of Hajj. So there's 5 days of Hajj, from 8th to the 13th, and the 9th being the day of Arafah, the 10th being the day of Eid, and the day of Adha or sacrifice, and thereafter there's a few more days of Eid, and that brings us to the end of the Islamic calendar. We come over here on page 17, and we've got a whole section here about fasting. Now we're looking at some parts of the pillars of Islam, so that what we covered earlier, okay, in the basics of Islam, on page 10 of the 5 pillars of Islam, just some details to Ramadan, onto fasting, some essentials about how the fast sort of works and what we do in a typical day and night of Ramadan. And then you've got the zakah and sadaqah, a very small section, that though this book will focus on zakah and sadaqah with some detail later on, and Hajj, a very brief part is there, and the forthcoming edition inshallah will have more about Hajj on that, and a detailed section on Hajj on that inshallah. Now on this section here, and these colors, what they signify is the importance of some of the rulings that we have in Islam. So we always have a reference to this in all of the fiqh chapters, and it's really important for every Muslim to know always what fard means. It's obligatory. Wajib is something that is compulsory, or something that really should be done. Sunnah is something which the Prophet ﷺ has encouraged, and it's his way of doing things. Nafil is something where it's a voluntary act, a deed that you get reward for, but there's no sin in missing it out. And then you've got the makruh, which you shouldn't do. Makruh means is disliked by Allah and His Messenger, so it signifies you shouldn't do it. Okay, just because it's makruh should not mean to a Muslim that, okay, that's also in the categories of things that we can do. And haram obviously is totally something that we avoid all the time. But these things are really essential for a Muslim to know, because every time they cover something of fiqh, they'll always come across these rulings, and the Arabic is important for us to focus on, and to know that is what it means when we hear these terms. So that's all in all the different parts of the whole of the contents that we've covered. And as a summary, what we've just covered is we've covered Aqidah mainly in this, okay, in this page 10 and 11. We've covered a lot about Salah in page 12, 13 and 14, the actual elements of Salah. In 15, we're concentrating on the Adhan. 16 moves on to janazah, which is a wajib, and it needs to be done by every Muslim. And some parts of their awareness and thinking about the calendar is at the bottom, 16. But here Ramadan, zakah, sadaqah, Hajj and rulings of Salah are there, and that's pretty much the contents of this part of basics of Islam.